6 episódios da série original criada por Shonda Rhimes. Completados ao final da 18ª temporada.
Gente,
atualmente no ar nos Estados Unidos.
Gente,
aqui
eu tô tremendo, então
relevem. A
relevem.
produção da série e seu spin-off Station 19, desde a sala de roteiro.
Vocês querem que eu deite a
até
câmera ou
as
fique em pé
filmagens do
mesmo?
episódio. Então, com vocês, Kylie Donovan, Executive Producer Writer on Grey's Anatomy and Station 19. Beth Scooby, Writer, Producer on Grey's Anatomy. And Stefania Spampinato, Actress on Grey's Anatomy and Station 19. Welcome and thank you for being at rio2c.
Thank you. Obrigada.
We have fans, you see. Well, I'm going to start with the question regarding storytelling. So, I think both Beto and Kylie. How does the map for the season and the script development process work for both shows? And okay, you can start there.
I guess I would general. We start the season by mapping out the entire arc of the season. Usually we start with characters, so we take character A, for instance, where do we leave them next season? Where do we want them to be on the next one? And we do that for each character. We
Meu
beat
Deus,
it
ela
out,
tá muito linda. Olha a
and
franja,
slowly
olha a
we
franja,
break
gente.
these things down in smaller pieces. Eventually break them out little parts, and then into episodes, and eventually after that process you start writing episodes. I'm sure you can talk a little bit more about that.
Sure. Hi everyone, thanks for having us. Yeah, so we start with sort of like
Cara, eu não
what we
acredito que
call
ela
blue
falou
sky,
isso.
which is where we just sit, the writers all get together for like thematic terms of like what's Karina's theme for the season, what's Meredith's end goal for the season, and start from there and then really drill down. So it always goes like macro to micro, and things change, maps get thrown out all the time. That's kind of the name of the game, yeah.
And how does the process work? I mean, during the entire development, how do you divide the team, or how you organize to write the script? It's, I don't know if I'm very clear.
Olha o cabelo dela, olha o narizinho. Olha a franja, olha a franja.
It's something that evolves as we determine what stories are going in which episodes, because there's usually a certain writer who's better for that story, or a writer who pitched something from their personal life and they want to write that. And so it kind of we go along, we feel as we go. And there's no set, like, I'm going to write this many episodes, or so-and-so is going to write these episodes. But truly that's the beauty of the writer's room, is that everyone is involved in everything. So everyone in the writer's room has their fingers in every story at some point, every script at some point, and it all funnels through the showrunner in the end to keep the unified voice of the show, even with so many people being involved in it.
Cool. How many people in the room? Each?
Station, I think it's 12 of us. And on Grey's,
I think in Grey's it's also 12. But if you include the medical researchers, the doctors, the assistants, the showrunner, Kylie, when everybody's in the room, I've counted one time 23 people. But on like a day-to-day basis, it's usually around 12 to 14.
but with everyone kind of like, some people are on set, or like, every day there's about like 6 or 8 people that are involved. Like if you say, I need to talk about a story with some people, that's who's usually available.
Okay, cool. Now for Kylie, you work two different separate writers' room. What is the process and the dynamic in your relation with Chris, the showrunner, to do the bridge with the two series?
It's really hard. a lot of episodes of each show, and we're making them simultaneously. Like Stefania knows, like we're often shooting right on top of each other, and one episode, it's a lot to keep track of, and so Krista obviously is the showrunner of both shows, and I'm her number 2 on station and co-EP on Grey's, and so it's my job to make sure that there's continuity between the two, and that if we're going to do a particular story on Grey's, that the episode of Station 19 that airs the same night doesn't have a repeat story, or that Karina doesn't say something in the episode of Station that then contradicts what's happening in Grey's, which can be hard because there's so much going on at once. So it's a lot of reading all the drafts, reading all the notes, making sure everything's clear. And sometimes it is a very last minute change, and often I'm gonna get in trouble for saying this, but it's the actors sometimes who come to us, like Jason George will say, I said something on the other episode that is the opposite of this, or like Chandra will say it, and we'll be like, shoot, yeah, so okay, thank you, and we'll fix it in the last minute, because that's the pace that we work at. It's super fast. Yeah.
Cool. And for you, Stefania, as actress, how is it to be in 2 shows?
In both shows? It's so fun, because it doesn't happen very often that you get to play the same characters in 2 shows, and nobody could have predicted it, that a doctor would have been one of the main characters in a firefighter show, and it happened very organically. And I feel like on Grey's I get to do more doctory things, because obviously it's a hospital, that's where the show happens. And on Station it's more, the story goes more around my relationship. So it's like personal life choices, kids, marriage, and so I feel like I get to use my right brain as an actor on Grey's and my left one on Station. But it's incredibly fun, and I feel like it's so very collaborative because everything happens so fast with the writers. I don't know if it's a normal way to work, but the writers are always very open to, not, I don't know if other shows are so open. I feel like you and Krista are always so open to suggestions from us actors.
No, we're just better writers than Jennifer.
You But it does feel like everybody is listening to whatever we might say. Like, I said something in the previous episode that might not make sense on this one, but it's fun. It's incredible.
Ooh. I think that's for all of you. Since the beginning of the series, the cast of Grey's has always presented a diverse cast. In season 18, you have a character, Kay Bartley, did I say that right? Played by ER Master. How is diversity and authenticity reflected in the script you run? And do you work with the script writers or consultants to develop those characters? And what is the contribution for people from another country like Stefania and Beto?
I'll just start, and then you guys talk about it. We do have very diverse writers' rooms. If we decide to put a character on the show that isn't necessarily represented specifically in the writers' room, like for example, we don't happen to have
Gente, o
non-binary
fotógrafo tava
writers,
tirando
and
foto
queer
da
writers and
gente.
genderqueer writers, but we don't specifically have a non-binary writer. We use a lot
Forget
of
the foto do celular.
consultants and a lot of research, and we bring in organizations like GLAD, just to make sure that we're covering our bases. And in that case, we do obviously welcome contributions from the actor, but we try not to put that burden on the actor ever of like teaching us or telling us their personal stories. So that's something we're really cognizant of. But we, like I said, we use a lot of consultants, and not just in this particular case, but in every possible story. We always try to make sure we're being as authentic in our representation as possible.
There's a very honest effort on the part of everybody who runs our show, including ABC, including Studio, including Shondaland, and our creative bosses were Krista Kiley and Meg Marin is on Grace, to promote diversity that starts in our writing staff, but not only in the writing staff, also in the cast, also in the crew, and all of that helps us shape stories. There was an episode that I was able to do, I think we're going to talk about it later. It wouldn't have happened if there wasn't a Brazilian writer on staff. One of the reasons I was hired was because I have the skill set and the talent to do that job, but also because I'm Latino, also because I'm Brazilian, also because I speak another language, and having people who come in with different points of view and different stories to tell, that is something that we value very much in our staffs. So it's diversity is very important across both shows because of the types of stories that we tell, but also because we know that it adds value to the storytelling because it adds creative diversity. Cool.
Well, I feel like it's also one of the strengths of both shows. Look at us. I mean, the stage is like very diverse.
But the diversity here is very
And so, yeah, I feel like they take it very seriously. They handle it very delicately. And I was created by Krista, I presume. And it just all sparked from one of the characters' last name. So, Andrew De Luca, Giacomo Giannotti is the actor that played the character. They kept his Italian last name, although he was established in the show as an American character. And then all of a sudden they were like, well, he has an Italian last name, let's just go for that. And that's how my character was created. And yeah, I feel like they have done so much of this, where they use little things and they're like, let's bring more diversity onto the show. And I believe, as I said, it's one of the the biggest strengths of the show. Everybody feels represented, seen on both shows. Cool.
So, I think most of the people here are fans, so you probably know that Beto, which is Brazilian, wrote an episode which we'll see a quick spoiler, because it's not launched in Brazil.
It hasn't aired in Brazil yet, but you will soon.
So, just for you to be enticed by this episode about, you see.
The family's been on the road for weeks, so anything they need, meals, cots, clothes, just put them into line. Hospital services has been in touch with them about a utilities hookup for the RV, but we should be fine.
Here they come.
What's wrong? I don't know. She suddenly was starting to feel a little dizzy. Come, I'm getting good.
Fernanda, it's Dr. Maggie and Dr. Ndugu. So, everything's spinning.
When did it start?
About 20 minutes ago.
I drove as fast as I could.
We need to get her inside right away. Dr. Maggie, are you here? Did I make it? Yes. Fernanda, you made it. I can see out of your eye very slowly. Yes.
We gotta get into the picture right now.
Vocês me viram? Dr. Beto, fisiologista.
Very cool. So, Beto.
Virology took me last season.
So much faces, so much skills you have. So, Beto, what can you tell us about how did you come up with the idea? How did you pitch the idea, and what was the process until it was approved?
So every episode of Grey's Anatomy has more than one storyline, and someone in our writing staff had found a real story of this person who had crossed the United States in an RV to get medical help, and I liked the story very much. Kind of reminded what I pitched it as was Little Miss Sunshine meets Grey's Anatomy. That's how I pitched it. And when that got approved, I thought, might as well make them Brazilian in that case. So one of the cool things on Grey's is that we're allowed to produce our own episodes too. So I had prep meetings with all the departments, so props, costumes, casting, and everybody was so excited I explained to them, it's very important for my people to be seen on Grey's Anatomy, and we have a huge following. And everybody was super on board. Helping me show that. So that's how it came to be. It was a medical story that spawned some characters, and then I made them Brazilian. And there was input from the writers' room and from every other department. Then we cast a Brazilian actor, Eduardo Muniz, who plays one of the characters. There's a couple of lines of dialogue in Portuguese, which means nothing to anybody else, but I told them it means a lot to us. And also makes the characters feel specific to the story, and not just generic patients who are coming from somewhere else. So that's kind of how that came to be. It was like a collaborative process like anything else, but without the support for diversity that we have on Grey's and Station 19, it wouldn't have happened because there wouldn't be a Brazilian writer on Grey's. And Kelly McCreary, who plays Dr. Maggie Pearson, is one of the doctors in that story, said to me during the shooting, she said, I can't believe that it's been 18 seasons of Grey's Anatomy and we haven't done a Brazilian episode yet. It's crazy because we have so many Brazilian fans. We could do half a season of Grey's Anatomy for Brazil. And that is just like the sweetest thing. And the episode hasn't aired yet. It's not a big spoiler, it's more like a teaser. And it airs in Brazil in the Sony channel on May 24th at 9 p.m.
I'll take Stefania to ask you, because you are a writer, producer, and you go to the set. And what do you think is your contribution? How do you work on the set? Because here in Brazil, it's something very difficult to convince the producers to do, you see. So I'd like you to talk about it a little bit.
Yes, and if there's one thing I would love to talk about to product professionals, that's the one thing I would like to leave here, which is the world right. And I want to kind of talk about that too, because she would do it from an overseeing perspective. The biggest difference between making TV here and in Hollywood, in my opinion, is the writer-producer. The writer-producer is an emissary of the writer's room and the showrunner on set. So we're not there to fight the director. We are not there to take control of anything. We are there to be the person that is responsible for story, the same way other department heads are there to be the heads of their departments. And we have prep meetings, especially one called tone meeting, before we start shooting the episode, where the showrunner, the director, the editor, the writer, all the department heads are in it, and we go through the script scene by scene, and this meeting is led by the showrunner, where we talk about, this is where this scene is supposed to be. This is supposed to be a little funnier, this is supposed to be a little lighter, this is supposed to be a little more dramatic. And we all take notes so that when we are all on set, we know what the scene is supposed to be. So what ends up happening on set is that if an actor has a question about a line, if they are having trouble saying a line, and we need to quickly do a rewrite, it's the writer who does it because we are right there. If there's, sometimes they want to change a line because, I don't know, can I say blue instead of green? And we can tell them no, because on episode 7 that's coming in 2 episodes, the thing is green. And the director might not know that because our directors rotate way more than our writers. And sometimes the actors are more comfortable talking to us about story than going to the director. That all being said, we don't talk to the cast, we don't step on anybody else's toes unless it's about script and story. And that helps keep the unity and especially the tone of the show and the tone of the scenes the way we agreed all on sign off on during pre-production.
Cool. So Kylie, what's your relationship with the directors? Explain a little bit to us, because in Brazil it's different most of the time. So how does it work? How do you think there's some kind of profile of director to do this kind of work, or do you think all kind of directors can do it? So could you tell us?
Yeah, it's so in television in Hollywood, most TV shows nowadays, I don't know that it's always been this way, but the standard practice now is that in addition to the showrunner, who's sort of course, in charge of the writer's room, but is also overseeing cast, crew, everything, there's another role called the producing director. That's typically it's someone who has a lot of experience directing television. Sometimes they're the person that directed the pilot. Obviously, for our shows, that's not true because the pilot was 1,000,000 years ago. But
in Brazil, we have a similar role to that, which is the diretor geral, I think, just for reference.
Okay, so the producing director is basically is in charge of the crew and makes a lot of most of the decisions in terms of who the guest directors will be and making that schedule. And it's good because then you have a unified vision in terms of like when a guest director comes in to direct an episode, the producing director sits them down and walks them through like, here's the visual language of the show. Like, don't reinvent the wheel. Take risks and make it your own. Know that we don't do dissolves on the show, or we don't do this kind of coverage, or whatever it is, and helps the director understand like the showrunner's vision for how they want the tone to be. And so my relationship with that person is super close. We're communicating all day, all the time, and they come to me with like, hey, we're worried about the producibility of this fire that you wrote that's impossible for us to shoot. Can you please like do something? Or like, or Boris isn't available on these days, so can you work on his scenes a little bit, or whatever it might be. We're constantly in contact, and every time we publish a new script, we have a meeting called the story meeting, which is weirdly vague name for a meeting where we sit down like with the main like brain trust, the main producers, and go through like what are the big issues here, what do we need to address in the script, and then as we prep the episode, I also work with the guest director to make sure that they understand the tone and that we're all on the same page.
And as writers, we are also involved in post because we get every single cut of the show that comes afterwards. We watch all of them. We give notes with the showrunner, so we get consulted on the episode like every step of the way, from starting the first page to seeing the final cut. The writer has saying in almost all of it. And I think that might be a little specific to our two shows is that a lot of our cast members
saco, deixa o peito dela.
On Grace,
Meu
we have
Deus,
Kevin McKay,
não tá nem aparecendo.
directs so many episodes, and Chandra, say it?
That's okay.
I just wanted to say, Stefania is also like, she directed a short, and part of the process is to shadow our directors, and she has experience with that as well, on directors.
Stefania, is there something you would like to do?
Yes. So, well, I feel like I first thought it was possible when I started on Grace and I saw Chandra and Kevin McKay directing, and I thought they were at times so much better than the other directors because they really know the tone and the style of the show. They know the cast. They know how to approach every single cast member and how to talk to them because, as you said, all directors are different and all actors are different. So it's kind of a skill to know how to talk to each of them. Some actors love to be directed and get notes. Some other actors are like, leave me alone, I don't want to hear anything. I've played this character for so long. And you need to respect both as a director and kind of navigate the actors that you're working with and the creatives that you're working with. So then I did a movie in Italy, and I worked very closely with the director. I was in the editing room every day, and I was like, oh my God, I really want to be involved in the process. And I asked our showrunner if I could start shadowing on our show. I don't know if shadowing makes sense, but it's basically you sit behind the director every day from pre-production to post-production, and you see how an episode gets made, which I feel like it's so informative and you learn so much. And the beautiful thing about television is that it's very collaborative. You have very talented people that run each department, and as a director, obviously you have to make most of the final decisions. But it was very fascinating to watch, and it was also fascinating to realize how much I had absorbed already by just being on set and being an actor that paid attention to everything else that was happening. But yes, I just finished my short, and hopefully it will screen in Italy this summer. And then the goal is to start directing on Station 19 in this case.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay, I think now I have a very specific question to Kylie. It's for you.
Sim, tá tombando já.
Station 19 started as a spin-off of Grey that had few elements connecting both shows. Starting with season 3, Krista Vernoff took over as the showrunner for both shows. How are the crossover episodes when the network and the creative team find it necessary to tell the stories? I know you said something about that, but I think here what I'm trying to get from you is there something different about the tone? What is your role in how to do this connection? I don't know if I'm being too clear.
No, yeah, I think I understand. It's a mix. Sometimes we start the season knowing we really want to do, the network really wants us to do one big crossover premiere or in the middle of the season. And so we sort of pitch towards that, where we get both rooms tell all the writers, like, come up with some really cool big incidents that we can have, like whether it's a disaster or just a patient or whatever it might be. And then we hear all the pitches and we decide, like, oh, that will make a really good crossover. And what we're looking for in the crossover is always different, because you can only have so many hurricanes and floods and earthquakes and things like that. So sometimes it's like, oh, that's that we want to see, and then see them come into the hospital. Sometimes it's not planned. It's just like we write a story on Station 19, and Crystal will say, wait, I want to see more of this patient, and we end up like rewriting the Grey's episode to put that patient in the next episode, just because they were really compelling. And sometimes it's not a big event. Sometimes it's as small as Karina's character appearing on both episodes, or Ben, or Bailey. Sometimes it's just the small, like, organic crossover, which we don't call it a crossover, and you know, we're not the marketing team, so it's up to the network how they market something. When they decide to call it a crossover, that's their decision. But usually it's like those big event type things.
Kylie always wants to kill people, and Stefania and I, the people who protect.
That's not true.
Okay, so regarding production now, can you tell us how many pages are filmed per day?
You have to say the words. It's a rough day is like 7. That's a hard day.
Well, the roughest day you wrote. It was 7 pages of just 2 actors in one apartment, in one house. And I was like, what? This feels like a theater play. And it was amazing, I have to say. But the thing that got us a little bit like, what? Is that the lines changed the morning of. I'm totally throwing you under the bus.
No, blame Krista.
But it was amazing. I feel like as an actor, again, being able to do like a 7-page scene is so fun and so rewarding. And the director, Peter Page, that day was like, we're just gonna play. We're just gonna handle it like a theater play, and we're gonna have cameras everywhere. and let's have fun. And it was amazing. So 7 pages, yeah, the answer.
And as you guys probably mostly know that are in the business, it's like a 7-page day is only possible when it's like literally 2 actors in a room. If it's we have on both shows, we have a lot of scenes that are like 6 people in a room, and those scenes take a lot longer because you have to move the camera and do coverage, and so those days are like 4-page days probably. And on station, when we have like big action scenes, sometimes you'll look on the call sheet, which is like the day's schedule, and it'll be 1.5 pages, and you're like, how? What? The whole day? Yes, because you wrote something ridiculous.
It's also true. I feel like the hours are different here. In America, we work 12 hours days. I know, that's the face. She did the pictures. In Italy, when I shot my short, it was like, great, they're gonna have 12 hours, plenty of time. And they were like, no, it's 8 hours plus 1 hour lunch. I was like, what? How do you get anything done? So that's also...
And 12 hours is a good day. It's like, that's not going over.
Oh my God. But
It's 9 days per episode, now 10 during COVID protocol, but that's how many days have per episode.
But do you think the studio system helps to make these 12 hours more
More productive.
More productive?
Get more done in that same time.
Yes, that because it continues.
The studio system, meaning
Like filming most of the episode inside
on
the
stage.
studio.
On stage,
yeah.
Yes.